Following on from Apple's announcement yesterday to launch its new subscription service through its App Store, I'm here with Richard Stephenson, the Chief Executive of YUDU Media, to discuss some of the wider implications for the market. So Richard, if I could begin by asking you, what are the key game changers for publishers in Apple's announcements?
The key game changer is there is now a subscription system available for publishers to use on the App Store. Up till now, the only way subscriptions could have been done successfully has been off their own websites, and they had to have the software also built to verify people's subscriptions to give them access to publications on the App Store. Now, there are two routes now that is available. One, Apple is saying you can continue that system, but the second point is that if you continue it, you also have to make that same publication available for subscribers at the same price or lower on the App Store. And that's a major change operationally for publishers.
And what do you think are the main implications for app developers who work with these publishers?
The lack of enforcement of Apple's 11.2 clause, which we've talked about, which effectively says that anything offered for sale as an in-app purchase must also be certainly made available on the App Store. So all of those publications that have been read using the off-site system will now have to go through Apple's approval process, and that is a major change for app developers and for publishers. Further to that, Simon, is that there are commercial implications, because now that sharing of the 100% revenue between the publisher and maybe the aggregator or developer now has to be reduced by the 30% that Apple is now taking. So they are now sharing only 70%. And therefore, revenue share models that were working on the basis of 100% of the revenue are now going to be under severe strain and questionable whether that model can actually exist going forward. We welcome the certainty that Apple has now introduced. And for us, we've had to develop our products trying to get into the minds of the way Apple wanted to proceed and likely to proceed going forward. An example of this was that when we developed our solution, we decided to develop it so that it fully complied with Apple's requirements and rules and their instructions that they particularly put out in September. But we also had a very neat solution for people to sell subscriptions off their own website. We kept that in the locker because it didn't comply with that arrangement. We now know that that is now possible, and so from our point of view, we now have the ability to provide the software tools and a solution for publishers to be able to offer it off their own website and to be fully compliant with the subscription system that sits on the Apple Store.
Will existing applications currently not available on the App Store be easily migrated onto the App Store?
I don't see the migration of solutions that are currently running off the App Store happening to put them onto the App Store. This is quite a different process that's required. The difficulty of migrating onto the Apple Store really means you have to actually rewrite a lot of what you've done beforehand. And although some of the viewing technology can remain the same, how it actually integrates, how it authenticates using the App Store will have to be different.
Now, Richard, what do you think the major commercial implications for publishers are following on from this announcement?
They are now going to be parting with 30% that they previously didn't have to part with. There is such an easy method for potential subscribers to buy off the App Store. This ease of purchase will easily offset the leakage you get, the fallouts you get during a complex sign-up process. And if you do the maths, you can calculate that they need to sell about 43% more subscriptions in order to get the same amount of dollars or pounds income to compensate for the 30% loss. Now, we believe that that will happen, and they will exceed that because they're now providing the consumer with a very easy way to buy, and impulse purchase is very important in this game.
So the announcement makes it optional for subscribers to pass over data. How do you think that will affect publishers?
Information about subscribers is key for magazine companies and newspapers. In this case, Apple have decided that they are going to give the consumer the ability to opt out of providing that data. They will provide the data to subscribers only if the consumer or the subscriber decides to do so. And therefore, it's highly possible that the subscription companies or the publishers will now have a missing gap in their subscription where they're providing subscriptions, but they actually don't know who those subscribers are. So it remains to be seen, but I think we will find that the data that they're expecting to get will be in fact be short by a reasonable percentage over what they're used to.
How will the purchasing of publications change for consumers?
Well, consumers, I believe, are the big winners in this. The consumer is not concerned who gets the 30%, whether it's the publisher or Apple. All they wish to do is to buy their subscription. So the consumer definitely wins, and I think that's been the driving thinking behind Apple's structure, as well as the fact is that they need to actually capture that revenue stream. Where consumers might lose out is where a publisher or a magazine decides they don't want to subscribe to Apple's system, and therefore they will not be able to get access to their favorite magazine on the iPad. If that actually transpires, then clearly the consumer will be missing an experience.
Will the changes mean that some publications that no longer comply with Apple not be available?
If the company providing that service does not comply with Apple rules and provide the ability to do that on the Apple site, then the access to that subscription will be ended by Apple. So those companies providing that type of service pretty well have to do this in order to make sure they can fulfill the commitment they've made to supply those subscriptions.
So following on from what we've discussed today, this sounds like this is good news for both consumers and publishers alike.
The iPad is an astonishing device in the sense it's created a completely new genre, and it's enabled people to have access to the internet, computer-style power on the move, and it's perfect for magazines. So what was missing was subscriptions. It's now here. I think people should get less concerned about the 30%, as I've said, because I think that the increased volume of subscribers will compensate for that. And I think that locking in good subscribers for these types of users, which are important users to reach, will offset the lack of data on subscribers, etc. And I think that this is the moment where magazine titles should go out to embrace and make sure they're on the iPad and available to this very important group of consumers that are using these devices.
Okay, Richard, thanks for your insight into what sounds like a major change.